What does it take to turn personal trials into a powerful mission for community change? Today on the Mentium Podcast, Stories of Impact, I sit down with my sister, Queen Keskessa, a passionate leader, storyteller, and advocate whose journey from Ethiopia to the United States is nothing short of inspiring. In this episode, Queen shares her family's escape from war, the challenges of adapting to a new culture as a teenager, and the complexities of navigating dual identities as an immigrant. She opens up about her work creating meaningful spaces for multicultural communities in Memphis, including a groundbreaking role she established within the mayor's office to better serve refugees and immigrants. Through her powerful storytelling, her advocacy, and her work, Queen embodies resilience, leadership, and the spirit of unity. Join us as we explore her journey of empowerment, the importance of cultural understanding, and her call for all of us to create the change we wish to see. Without any further ado, Queen, can you please tell us about your roots and your story?
Thank you, Professor. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here. I'm beyond excited to be here. Like you said, we've come a long way. You have transformed my life, and that's for another day. But my name is Queen Titile Keskessa. I'm originally from Ethiopia. I was born and raised there until the age 15. I came to this country at the age of 15 to Memphis. I've been all over since, but we came because of war, really. They had come to register. I was 15, my brother was 14, and they had come to register the youth for a military camp. And my parents were able to get their friends who lived in Memphis at that time to host us. And they came on a Thursday to register us, and on Saturday morning, with no warning, with one luggage, we were shipped off to Memphis, Tennessee. And then we went to a boarding school in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which I adore. That was a life-changing experience. And then when I graduated from high school, my parents were able to come with the rest of my siblings. And we were in New Jersey for a little while, and then we resettled back in Memphis and been here ever since.
That is an amazing journey so far. But can you tell me a little bit more about like how your parents was able to have that vision of the future, and what would have happened if you stayed back there and enlisted in the military?
Well, they didn't have a choice, really. Many families didn't have a choice. I think my parents were some of the lucky ones that had friendships and families outside of the country that they were able to send us to. If I had stayed there, half of my generation is gone, right? There's a lot of people from my generation that did not make it, that are not alive anymore because of war and many other things along the way. Yeah, so we're the lucky ones. So that's why I don't want to cry, but I feel like I have to live above and beyond, because there's so many from my generation that did not make it, right? So it's not guilt. It's not guilt at all. I just want to take advantage of everything that life has to offer, because there were many, many, many that did not make it to the age that I am now, which is an incredible blessing. Yeah. So my parents, I'm not sure if it's even vision. It's more of a desperation, right? To make sure that their children survived. And many parents did not have that option, right? They did not have that choice. So
You know,
I didn't
Queen,
mean to.
we all know that America is a melting pot. You know,
Yeah. It is.
everybody except the native Indians, everyone came here for some reason. Some came by choice, others came because they just wanted to seek better opportunities, but
Yeah.
they came here by choice. Now, in your case, as you mentioned, it was out of desperation. Your parents really wanted you to survive. That's the reason why they brought you here.
Yeah.
Now, can you walk me through your experience as the 15-year-old landing in America, a foreign land where you don't know the culture, you didn't know much about it? I know you spoke English certainly when you
Yeah.
came because it is also the language in one of the languages in Ethiopia. But can you walk me through your experiences being a 15-year
Sure.
old, especially like in the schools and the neighborhoods, and how did it feel for you?
Oof. It was hard. It was definitely hard. I spoke English, but I spoke classroom English, right? Like we don't
Mm,
use English in our day-to-day life. We only
mhm,
use English in school.
mhm,
And in even when we're in school, it's not where when we're outside playing with our friends. It's just literally in the classrooms. That's the only place we used it. So I
mhm,
knew classroom English, and coming here and learning the dialect, especially here in the South, it's it was an experience. And I'll tell you one of the things that sticks out in my head. Um, we got here. I'm trying to think. It was when we first my first week of school, high school. I was in the 10th grade.
mhm,
It was school was out one day for MLK Day,
mhm,
and I didn't know who MLK was. I didn't. I've never heard of Martin Luther King before coming here. I didn't know American history at all.
mhm.
Actually, all I knew was Hollywood, right? Whatever. Eddie Murphy, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember like those are the movies that we grew up on. And I asked this girl, and I still remember her name, but I'll save her identity for now. But I asked, "Who's MLK?" Oh, she wanted nothing to do with me, but she wanted to beat me up that day. Who do you think you are? You don't know who MLK is. She don't know Martin Luther King. It was, yeah, that I learned the hard way to come into this culture, because until I opened my mouth, I'm just African American, right? But she didn't give me a chance to really even say anything, right?
Mhm.
To give me the space to understand that we don't learn African American history, or not any American history, period.
Yep.
We did not learn anything about that. So that was one experience that woke me up really fast on
Wow.
how to move in this community. Um, there were many other ones. It was difficult. My parents weren't here. I missed home. I missed my friends. I missed the food. Lord have mercy. I missed the food. Yeah, it was a lot. It was too much, too fast. And it really is difficult for a 15-year-old, you know?
Mhm.
And my dad came to take me back because I cried every day and I didn't want to eat the food. So they thought I
Wow.
was going to harm myself. And then he came and he stayed with us for about a month. And by then I had discovered chocolate and ice cream and, all the indulgent things. And when he said, "Okay, I'm here to take you back," and I said, "Nah, I'm good now." And
Wow.
then I said, "Yeah."
The reason why I ask you about the schools because I know how many of our children right now, the experiences that they have. I was just in Baltimore last week speaking to a group of young people, and my first thing with them is the dual identities that they do have. Like when they're at home, they're Africans. When they're outside the house, they're Americans. And then like they resonated with that so much, and maybe yours is dating back now for a while, but like how are your own children experiencing that now?
That really is a thing, Professor. It really, really is. Even for me in that time, it was not. I mean, this was 1987. I mean, I'll tell you. So that was a different time, right?
Mm-hmm.
There were not that many immigrants, right? So um, people were not exposed to a lot of things, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And then we didn't have social media. So we didn't have all the added stressors that
Mm-hmm.
that people are experiencing now. And then even honestly, yeah, Taja wanted to beat me up and all, but I didn't feel bullied otherwise, right?
Oh,
It was treated more like a novelty. Oh, look at this girl from Africa, and like people wanted to take me to their church, people wanted to take me to their home to just like show this person from Africa. But now it's different because I work with refugee kids here, and bullying is such a big thing that they're experiencing. So time is so different now.
mm,
As for my children, they were very my son, especially when he was younger. He's 17 now, but when he was younger, he used to tell me that he's American. He was born in Memphis, and I let him have that, right? I let him. I said, okay, if that's what you want, that's what you want. However, your parents are Ethiopian, and the rules in an Ethiopian household are the rules in an Ethiopian household. So,
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely.
So, you can think you can, do what your American friends do, but
Mm-hmm.
that's not in this house. So for instance, I've never allowed them to spend the night in other people's house. We
Yep.
just don't do that. I
Well,
was never allowed to do it, and they thought it was very harsh, but I think now they're starting to appreciate that.
sleepovers. Yes,
Yeah,
I
you
get
know,
you.
yeah, so I tried to, it really was a balancing act trying to create the atmosphere, having them know their identity
Absolutely.
at the same time when embracing who they are. I mean, they are Americans. I'll tell you one incident. I think I might have shared this with you before.
Mm-hmm.
When he was in the fourth grade, when my son was in the fourth grade, some kid called him the N word. And we don't listen to rap music. We don't use that word in the house. And at that time, he had no idea what the word even meant, honestly, because
Mm-hmm.
they made such a big deal at school, and it was a white kid that called him that, and they wanted to have a parents conference, and they suspended the kid, and they wanted me to come and be part of the conference. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I told my son, like, I'm not going to take time off from my job to come and talk about this nonsense, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't understand why they were making such a big deal out of it. And he asked me, like, what is the N word? And I told him, the history of the word, and how in the hip hop culture, for instance, that people
Mm-hmm.
use it very loosely. And
Mm-hmm.
in these cases it means this, and when this group of people say it, it becomes this whole monster, right?
Mm-hmm.
But and then he asked me, "Am I the N word?" I said, "No, sir, you are not. You can trace back your ancestors to Adam and Eve if necessary. I mean, I can tell you at least uh, 8 generations with their names, right?
Yes.
That's not who you are." And I asked him, I said, "If somebody called you a donkey, would you be upset?" He goes, "No." I said, "Why would you not be upset?" Because I'm not a donkey. Same. So don't, and this word only has power
Mm.
if you give it power.
Yes.
Otherwise, it literally is just a word. So you don't identify with it, you don't give it power. And I told him, I'm not going to take time off from work to come there to have this discussion. They have done whatever they need to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's their responsibility to teach their child, and
Mm-hmm.
it's my responsibility to teach my child. And
Wow.
we were good. But I will tell you something strange that happened after that.
Please tell
He
me.
started saying he's Ethiopian.
Wow. Look at that. And he was the
Yeah,
one who refused that identity in the first
yeah,
place.
yeah.
Wow.
After that, he started saying he was Ethiopian, and he started wanting to learn the language. And then his grandma, my
Wow.
mom, was teaching him the language. He learned how to write some of learned the alphabet and so on and so forth.
Mm.
So as sad as I am as that incident happened,
Hmm.
but it actually served a purpose in his life to help
Absolutely.
him. Yeah, it taught him, I guess, a lesson. I don't know. It woke something inside of him, and then he started to realize, okay, in this society, I have an identity that, there are many that have their identity stolen from them, right? I mean, it's our brothers and sisters that are African American, their identity was stolen from them.
Wow.
But he started saying he was Ethiopian after that.
That's a beautiful and a powerful story that will allow us to transition now to where you are and what you do. I know I came to Memphis for some different reason and I visited you, so we didn't get a chance to see the community. But I
Yeah,
know now you work at the mayor's office, but
I do.
also through that job, you are able to work with refugees, to work with the community, and just doing some very, very impactful work. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I want to be a little bit dramatic to tell you how this even came to be.
Please do.
I
I
was
want to
working
hear it.
I was working at the Chamber of Commerce for 7 years, and I had wanted to work in the mayor's office representing the refugee and immigrant and just multicultural community as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
There was not a position in the mayor's office. There was no such position in the city,
Wow.
period.
Wow.
And in my prayer and my manifestation, when I was at the chamber, I'm like, okay, I've been here for 7 years and it's time to move on. But I
Mm-hmm.
was asking myself, what is it that I truly want to do? I don't
Mm-hmm.
want just a job just to have a job. I want something that actually will make a difference in my life and in the people's life that I get to work with.
Yes.
So I had put on post-it notes all over the wall, and that this was during the pandemic, and we were working from home. My
Mm-hmm.
wall was filled with the things that I wanted to do: work with immigrants, work with refugees, work. Multicultural director actually was the title that I had put.
Wow.
And one day I met this lady that worked for not this mayor, the previous mayor,
Mm-hmm.
and I told her, I said, I really want to go back to the city. And she sent me a link for this job that had come up, which was gun violence intervention program.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at it and I was like, Lord, this is not what I asked for. I'm like, I said I want to work with immigrants. Gun violence is not it, you know. But
Okay.
I was obedient. I said, okay, fine. I said it would be easier to go in and then switch positions, right? So
Absolutely.
I said, okay, I will apply. I said I will apply. And I applied and I got the interview. The first interview was with an African American woman who was
Mm-hmm.
incredibly nice and supportive, but she knew clearly that I had zero experience with this, because this job was for someone to work with gang members and to try to get them to put the gun down and come back to this side, right?
Mm-hmm.
To me, like, it just was so far from everything that I stood for. But anyway, she knew that. She understood even from our conversation. So she said, I'm going to get you to talk to the chief, but
Mm-hmm.
I need you to read all the articles that I'm going to send you, and I need you to order this book and read it. So
Mm-hmm.
I did all of that. It was like I was studying for my a bar exam or something. That's how,
Wow.
like, I studied everything she gave me. And when I talked to the chief, all my answers were like based on what I read, based on this study, based on this book. Anyway, so I answered all his questions and then finished the interview. I was like, this is just not going to work. This needs to be a cop, a detective, because this is not for me.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so he calls me on a Friday and he said, I have good news and bad news. I said, tell me the bad news first. He goes, we decided to go with a different candidate for this position. I was like, sir, with all due respect,
That's not the
I'm
bad
okay
news.
with that. As I said, there was nothing in me that matched
Wow.
any of this job.
Wow.
But he goes, I said, then what's the good news? He said, you did so good in your interview. We still would like for you to come to the city, but I want you to take the weekend and think about what that might look like. I was like, I said, hold on. I don't have to wait for the weekend. I said, in the mayor's office right now, there's no representation of the immigrant and the refugee community in Memphis, which is really growing. And then the like Afghanistan thing had just happened. I said, we're about to receive 100 and something families from Afghanistan. And there's no one in the mayor's office that in any way is keeping track with any of this. He goes, you know what? You're
You
right.
created a position.
Yep. He said, and he said, okay, I'll talk to so and so, and we'll see like how we can make this work. And then I got an email from the lady that he said, she emailed me. She said, this is a rough draft of a job description. I want you to edit it as you see fit. Yeah.
So you literally created a
Yes.
position for yourself in the
Yes.
mayor's office.
Yes.
That is beautiful.
I'm still to this day in awe. So, and this was the mayor's last 2 years of his last term. And everybody was telling me, like, why would you ever, because this is an appointed position, right? Because when
Yes.
the mayor goes, I go, basically. I
Okay.
said, I would rather have 2 years of where I get to do what I want to do. And the same God that put me here will figure out my next step, right? And then the I finished the 2 years, and the new mayor, the current mayor, came in, and I told him pretty much the same thing that I said, like this. And then we had done work. I've created the multicultural advisory board. I introduced them to everybody. There were 26 countries on there that were represented. We had our mini United Nations right here.
Look, I'm telling you, I have to say this. Like when I talked to you the other day and you mentioned we have a mini UN in Memphis,
Yeah,
I said, I have to have you on the show for you to tell your story. And I'm just telling you that this is the power of sharing what you do with others because you do not know to what ear it will land.
yeah,
Because you and I know each other for a while, for some years now, but I was inviting people left and right to come to the show. I didn't think of you. But until we talked, you
yeah,
said we have a mini United Nations
yeah,
in Memphis. I
yeah.
said, I need to hear that, but also I want my viewers to really get to know who you are and the impactful work that you were doing right there. Please carry on.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And so the current mayor said, yeah, it absolutely makes sense. And 6 months into his term, he's only been here for a year and a half now, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And towards the end of that year, not the end of his first year,
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay, in the past 2 years, we have done this, that, and the other. And every time we host dignitaries, and my title was Community Outreach and Multicultural Affairs Manager.
Yeah.
I said, but now you have me hosting dignitaries when they come in, and my job title and the work that I've been doing does not match. And again, the chief of staff said, okay, well, take a stab at it and see what you want, and you just let me know. I was like, really, God, again? So, and I gave him a list of things that, it should be called and what the pay should be. And they agreed, and now I'm the multicultural and foreign affairs administrator for this
Oh
administration.
my
Yeah.
goodness. Oh my
So
goodness.
I'm really truly blown away. But then you have to do the work, right? I'm out there with the people, connecting. I'm a connector. That's one thing I've learned. And really, as I was growing up and getting to know who I am as a person, because I do so many things. I didn't have a one word identity, right?
Mm,
I'm everywhere all the time, I feel like. But the one thing that I've learned that is seamless in all the things that I do is I connect people.
yes.
Um, and And I'm just beyond grateful to even know that and understand that I connect with people myself, and then I connect people with other people, just like you're doing.
Well, I am in awe with just how you are describing your work and what you have done. What I picked up from that is really it is all about leadership.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite topics. But I think, like, whenever you see a strong leader, somebody who's going somewhere, there is like one trait that they all have in common, and it is boldness. And
Yeah.
you are very, very bold for you to tell them what position you needed to hold over there is really boldness. Now, boldness doesn't mean being arrogant or just like speaking louder or doing all this stuff, but it is understanding not only who you are, but not settling for anything less than what you want. This has to be one of my favorite episode of Stories of Impact, because I know when you mentioned the mini UN, it's just like hit me, and I said I would like to know more. Now, can we dive deep into the intricacies of your work? I know you created the position and you do all of that, but who are you serving? And can you walk me through the day-to-day work that you were doing in the community?
So let's start with this mini United Nations.
Mm,
First, the fact that we all get along by itself is a huge, huge, huge thing. We have people. We have a Palestinian representation, and we
mhm,
have a representation from the Jewish community, the
mhm,
Chinese community, the Vietnamese community, the Filipino community, the African community, the Latino community. Obviously, is more heavily represented because we have more representation from that part of the world.
mhm,
And when the war in Palestine broke out last year, I
mhm,
thought we were going to implode, honestly, based on everything that was going on around us. But lo and behold, because of the relationship that we had built, right?
mhm,
We came we came to our meeting, and where I was even thinking, I'm like, if the rest of the world kind of can act like this, we would be in a much better shape,
absolutely,
right? Because
absolutely.
we've built that relationship and the baseline as human beings, not
Mm,
as this person from here, this person from there, but as human beings. We had built that relationship to where we're able to have a conversation without anyone blowing up or trying to fight or beating up each other. When they held the memorial for the Palestinians, I was there. Where they held a memorial for the Jewish community, I was there. And the tears are the same. The pain
mm,
is the same. And I'm like, I'm just confused. I'm like, am I the only one who sees this? I don't know why it's so simple and we just are constantly overcomplicating things. So that's the biggest, really my biggest flex in having this group in such a cohesive and loving way. Right? What do we do in a day to day? Like for me, day to day, I go to the refugee empowerment program. I mentor young people, especially the young teenage girls that are in the age bracket that when I came to this country, like 15 and 16-year olds, where they're in this confused state with identity, right?
mhm, mhm,
So we work through a lot of things through that. And I volunteer with the Islamic community. And as a group, we go and do volunteer work and in different entities. And we host foreign dignitaries that come for whether it's economic development or cultural exchange.
mhm.
We so the picture I sent you with your friend the other day from
Yes.
Senegal, I
Yep.
was at the Africa in April luncheon. So I attend a lot of events, I'll tell you that, this is not a complaint. Like, I love it. I absolutely love it because I get to wear all my beautiful African dresses, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of good things that are happening in
Mm,
Memphis. Memphis is not as as diverse as Denver is, but we're trying to get the communities that we have for us to all come together as immigrants, not be just sectioned off in the different parts of town where the Chinese community is doing just the things within the Chinese community and the Filipinos are doing the same thing. All the different African groups. We're creating a platform to where all of us can come as immigrants who are now Memphians, right? And including the Memphis community, where we just have this space of connection again as human beings who are now all Memphians. One of the things that we want to accomplish before the end of this administration is to have a center. And we haven't decided what the center will be. I don't know if we're going to call it a welcome center or an international center. We haven't figured out that part yet. But we're hoping to get maybe one of the empty school buildings or a building where in there we will have different stalls, like the food court at the mall. But this would be different immigrants from different countries will have their traditional food in this food court, and on other floors we will have immigration services, maybe medical services, translation services, language programs. So a one-stop shop to where if you're a newcomer to this country, you can come in and you can get whatever service you need somewhere in that building, so you don't have to drive from this part of town to the next part of town trying to accomplish whatever it is that you're trying to do. That's our big, bold, audacious goal to accomplish before. So we have like 3 years now to do that.
Well, with the work and the understanding that you guys have, 3 years is way plenty for you to get that done. Because I was amazed on when you talk about the communities, how when you did something for one and the next day it is for the first for the Palestinians and then the other one for the Jews, and then you realize that these people are just human beings.
Yeah.
So if there were no politics involved, we will get along just fine.
Yeah. 100%.
Because to me, I have to confess this. When you told me about, the people you were serving, all of a sudden I thought, well, if it is refugees, then they have to be Africans, maybe Afghans, but I was not really thinking about that wide spectrum that you were actually covering.
Yeah.
I mean, this is amazing. I mean, are you doing all of this with the full support of the mayor's office?
100%. This is the most supportive mayor I've ever worked for, and he's my fourth mayor that I've worked for in this
telling
city.
you, the rest of the country has something to learn from Memphis. Because I mean, I might be ignorant about like what's happening in the other places, but I have not heard it really the way you describe it in other cities. And I know I traveled quite a lot. I've visited many places, but wherever I go, this is what I'm hearing. Like people like you stepping up. We were just holding an event at the LG office today, and it was all about advocacy. What is advocacy? Well, representation, but also standing up for what you believe in, giving voice to the voiceless. And all of that is something that you are doing right now. But one thing I know is that it is extremely hard to do any work like that without any challenges. Can you share with us your challenges and your struggle in getting a work like that done?
The biggest challenge to me that I see day to day is, especially from, a few communities where they just, they want money, right? If you ask them to come join this group, like the government is handing out free money. It doesn't work like that, Trying to get people to understand that our togetherness has power.
Absolutely. It
Our
does.
togetherness has power.
It does.
And getting people to understand and see that is definitely a challenge.
Mm,
And the other thing, honestly, the getting also people the commitment to do the work, right? To show up,
hmm
the commitment to show up where if it's a festival, that's fine, right? But not everything is a festival, right?
That
Not
is true.
everything. There's some heavy lifting that we have to do in the background that
hmm
I can't do by myself, right?
hmm
So trying to get people to care, that's also a day-to-day challenge. And that's from every part of this. I can't say it's just the African people or the Latino people or the whatever. There
hmm
are people who are going through a lot of difficulties in life in general, adjusting
hmm
to this country's lifestyle. So trying to get people to see beyond that and come to these meetings, learn something.
hmm
So you can help yourself, and then you can help the others that are coming behind you.
That is true.
My dream is to make it easier for the newcomer, to make it a lot easier than it was for me to adjust, right? Because I
Okay.
feel like it took me I'd say like 20 years to
Mm,
adjust and understand. And had I used those 20 years to learn and advance, I would have been a lot farther than I am now. And I'm not
absolutely.
complaining. But it took me 20 years, because for 20 years my heart was back home and my body was here.
Yes.
And I was just surviving. I was just going through every day, with the dream of going back home, when I go back home, when I go back home. So I was never really fully here.
hmm
So I couldn't, how I said, you have to bloom where you're planted.
Yep.
I couldn't bloom because I wasn't planted here. It was like, the seed was in the dirt here, and then everything else was back home.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I want to cut that time, even if I cut it by half for people, by helping them understand, like, the mindset, how important mindset is and
Yep.
all of that. If I can cut that time down so they can truly be here and take full advantage of everything that this country has to offer and get to their next level. And
hmm
then they can help the the people that come in the future, or even the people back home, to just bloom where they're planted.
Part of the challenges, I believe, is like right now the influx of migrants that are just everywhere in the US. And I know you are doing a phenomenal job with that. There is a young man that has the same name as mine. The day you saw it, you said,
Yeah.
you have this. Tell me about that. We're gonna silence his name, but just that experience, because he too showed really a very bold move, because on his first week in Memphis, he said, I have to meet the mayor.
Yeah.
Being a freshly arrived immigrant, not knowing anything, he said, well, I am in this city. The first item on my agenda is to go and visit the mayor. And that's how he met you. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Professor, that young man is going somewhere. He's going to be someone very, very big. I know it.
Wow.
So he called the mayor's office, and the receptionist couldn't understand what he was saying. Anytime anyone has a heavy accent, anytime they don't understand, they just send them to me. It doesn't matter what they're looking for.
Yes, yes,
I don't mind. I don't mind, because
absolutely.
I am I am there for that exact reason. So
Yep,
when
yep,
when my people call, they have an ear that would listen to them at least, right?
absolutely. Beautiful.
So she told me, like, he doesn't really speak English, and she puts him through, and I'm like, I'm communicating with him in English and he speaks pretty well, right?
Yes.
So he told me that, they had come through and he wanted to meet with the mayor, and he was wondering, like, what can I do to survive? Basically, it was the question, right? So I told him, I said, if you have a way to come to the mayor's office, just come on and let's meet. And he did come, and he came with his cousin, whom both I love very much, honestly. They're just incredible young men. The journey that they have, one day they're going to have to write a book, honestly, because yeah, they've been through a lot. They came, I connected them with the Islamic Community of North America, which is a nonprofit that helps people. So they were able to help them with, food boxes and so on and so forth. And now, I mean, that young man would, in less than a year now, has his work permit and is working at FedEx, and they just bumped him to full time. He just texted me the day before yesterday. Yeah, I mean, it's mind blowing. It truly, truly is mind blowing. I had connected him with this program that allowed them to do some sort of computer programming. I know he had signed up for that, and I connected them with the ESL program. So I think both him and his cousin were in that program. They were willing to do the work. That's the first thing. They were willing to do the work by any means necessary. So I can't take any credit for the incredible luck that they've gotten, but it's all their drive, because had he not called that day, I'd have never met him.
That's true.
You know? And I've gotten to meet the rest of his family, his mom. I've talked to her in Senegal, and his dad, his brother, that was in France. And yeah, I've now met the whole family. So it's
when you introduced him to me, I'm telling you, I think he was one of the few that when I launched my website and everything, he went over there and actually scheduled the meeting with me. And when we met, he brought my book to the meeting. He showed it to me.
Yeah, I ordered him the book.
Man was opening everything and said, "This is where I am learning English right now." And then he would pick one passage. We kept doing sessions like that, like every single week. He scheduled something. And I'm like, I am amazed. I wish that many of the young people who just arrived would talk to him and just like, look, borrow some of that boldness, because in life, I was talking about this. Now, you have to be hungry and just not just wanting to eat. There's a difference there, because if you are hungry, nothing will stop you. But if you just want to eat, you're going to wait for people to serve you. But this young man, I am telling you, he was hungry for a lot of things. I mean, I want him to tell his story one day. So we'll just stop it there. But I'm telling you, I was very, very impressed, by him. But also he calls you mom, and there is a reason for that. Like if you were not open, you could have said so many things. Well, I'll just help him with this because that's my job at the May. But you followed him around in Memphis. And now it looks like he is very solid. He has a family in you.
Yeah.
That was beautiful. That was really beautiful. Now let's move on to this fourth segment here and talk a little bit about, like, how we have a lot of young ladies who came to America just like you did. What advice would you have for them, for young people with dual identities? How should they navigate the current atmosphere that we are living in right now? Being able to excel, to hold position, knowing that there is absolutely nothing they cannot accomplish if they really work hard to become somebody.
The number one thing is know yourself and be okay with who you are. Yeah. Be okay with that. You don't have to, and I'll tell you this from personal experience. When I was in Lancaster going to the boarding school, was a predominantly white school, and I wanted to sound like them. right? And I was talking, oh my gosh, no, that is so like crazy, right? I mean, that was just how I talked all the time because I just wanted to, oh my gosh, that's just crazy. That's how I talked, honestly. And it's so cringy now when I think about it. And then I moved to Memphis, right? I just wanted to sound like Memphians. And I think someone at some point said to me, why do you want to lose your accent? And I honestly, I asked myself, why do I want to lose my accent? Because it was part of this is how I talk.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought a lot about that. And I realized I don't have to be like anybody else. I don't have to sound like anybody else.
No.
And the fact that I am just as Ethiopian and just as American, this me is my superpower.
Absolutely.
The dual culture is my superpower. The multi languages is my superpower. And how I am is truly the prototype for everything that I need to do on this earth. That's it. Like I don't have to be anybody else. I don't wear makeup. I'm not saying don't wear makeup. If that's what makes you happy, do it. But don't do it to change your identity. I have dreadlocks. I show up in high places. I sit at the table just as proud as everybody else. But I'm not saying don't do your hair this way or that way. But don't do it to the point that it changes who you're meant to look like. Like you're don't do it to the point where your creator no longer recognizes you. That's all I have. Love yourself how you are. The way you are made is exactly sufficient. And in fact, more than enough for the role that you came to play on this earth. Do not wear the mask. Unmask yourself for you and just fall truly in love with everything that you are, and the entire world will fall in love with you. I promise. That is the easiest and the fastest way to get the world to love you is to love yourself.
Well, authenticity.
Yeah,
Authenticity.
yeah,
I mean, I don't even know how you were able to touch on all of those. But as you know, in public speaking, I always tell people that it is okay for you to speak with an accent.
yeah.
Just
It is.
make sense. Just make sense when you speak. That's all. Like, look, people got to understand that it doesn't matter how long you are in this country. The minute you open your mouth and you say one word, the natives who are here got to know that you are not a native born. So then, why would you even bother trying to speak like somebody you were not, or to carry yourself like somebody you would not? Because the way I say it, and I think it is Ralph Waldo Emerson who said this, that envy is ignorance and imitation is suicide.
Yeah,
Now, if I am trying to be like anybody else, it is a suicide because I am killing the person that
yeah,
I was. And I will never be like the person I want to be
yeah,
because there's only one spot for everybody to occupy, and they've already taken theirs.
yeah,
And if I leave mine, well, I lost.
yeah.
So we
100.
need to, that is such a powerful message, not just for the youth, but for the people who are here as immigrants. There is nothing wrong with being who you are, understanding. Because look, if you don't know who you are, you'll spend the rest of your life searching for it.
Yeah,
Because until you do, you cannot get anything meaningful.
yeah,
Because when I say about talk about success this way, I said you need to define success for you.
yeah,
Just last week with those young people in Baltimore, I had such a great time with them because of the way they see the world.
yeah.
But I'm like, success is one of those things that you cannot let anybody define for you, because
Absolutely.
then you would have to play catch up all the
Yeah,
time, because
yeah,
the definition might not fit you, it might not like just resonate with who you truly are.
That's true.
Queen, that was such a lovely interview that I got the honor and the pleasure to have with you. Now, it wouldn't be fair if we ended this without talking about your book. Because I have to tell everybody, this lady right here was the reason why my book was out the time it was out. Because you were on cohort 8, right?
Yeah, the
So
best.
when everybody heard about the release of your book, they didn't give me peace at all. They were like, well, if one of the participants on your classes was able to write a book, then how about you? You need to finish yours. You need to finish yours. Can you tell me a little bit about your book?
My book is a children's book, The Nubian Mermaid Adventures. It came out of my desperation to find for my daughter when she was younger.
Uh-huh.
She's 15 now. She was obsessed with mermaids, and I couldn't find a book with mermaids that looked like her. So during the pandemic, and I was in cohort 8, the best cohort. I have to plug that in.
We're not doing that here. That's all right, though.
We're going to do that every time, everywhere. Anyway, so this book came out of that time, and it's been since then we have published a coloring book, and now we're working on the second one, The Nubian Mermaid Adventures. It's on Amazon. The coloring book is not even on there yet, but it will be. And the second book should come out before the end of this year, I hope. Yeah.
So what I am gathering from you is that anytime you want something and it is not there, you create it.
That's it. That's it. That's how life should be. You shouldn't have to wait for anyone to do anything, honestly. You look around, especially for your own life or for your children. If it's not there, you just have the right and the power to create it. And you have to also, you have to teach your children that same thing. They can create all the things that they want in their lives. If they don't find it, they can create it themselves. Yeah.
Wow. What an amazing story. And look, I am excited. I
Me
have to
too.
say that. But now we are at the close of this beautiful conversation. Can you tell me, if you had one extra hour a day, how would you spend it?
Truthfully, I would dance. I love dancing.
Wow.
I would absolutely dance.
Well, no comment. Because I know that right there could have opened another door, because I saw you online doing all your things. But hey,
I
that
would.
will be the end of this interview. I would like to honestly thank you so much, not only for accepting to appear on the show, but for doing it with such grace. Because you could have said, hey, it is last minute, it is last notice, but none of that. You just said yes, and you are here right now. Yesterday at the launch of Mentium, you showed up. I mean, look, if I'm counting my people, my closest family, you occupied a very high number. So thank you so much for accepting to do this with me.
Thank you, Professor. And no, if you have the chance, so just say yes to life. You never know what will come out of it. So, yeah. So I'd say yes. If I have the time, I will always say yes, especially to you. I absolutely love you. You and Papa are honestly really in the top 5 of all humans. All humans on earth, in the top 5. Yeah. Honestly, you have no idea.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
I love you guys so much.
Well, as I told you the other day, when my second book comes out, Memphis will be the first place that I will be speaking to.
Okay, I will make it happen. We will definitely make it happen.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
inshallah.
inshallah. Thank you so much again. As we wrap up today's conversation, Queen's journey reminds us of the incredible strength it takes not just to survive, but to lead, to uplift, and to build bridges across communities. Her story is a powerful testament to the resilience of the immigrant spirit, the importance of embracing our full identities, and the change that is possible when we choose to step up and to serve others. Whether it's through community leadership, storytelling, dance, or advocacy, Queen shows us that every action matters and that each of us has the ability to foster unity, healing, and hope. Let today be a reminder you have the power to create the spaces you wish existed, to be the connection someone else is reaching for, and to turn your experiences into a force for good. Thank you so much for tuning in into this episode of the Mentium Podcast. If Queen's story moved you, share this conversation with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, the change we seek in the world starts with us. Actually, we are the ones we've been waiting for. Until next time, keep striving, keep building, and keep believing in your impact. I am Majama, and this is Mentium. Peace.